I respectfully refuse this imperial match.
Lord Wei, how could you?
The jeweled marriage contract hit the polished floor with a crack that silenced the entire imperial court. You refuse. The emperor's voice was calm, but every official standing beneath the dragon-carved pillars lowered his head. Across the hall, Princess Lien's fingers tightened around the sleeves of her crimson robe. She stared at me as though I had slapped her before the entire empire. You begged for this marriage for 3 years, she whispered. I did. Then why? I met her gaze without lowering mine. Because I refuse. Gasps rippled through the court. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else muttered that I had gone mad. Only one man remained expressionless. Prince Jian, the crown prince, the future emperor, the man who had smiled while ordering my execution in another lifetime. No one else remembered that future. Only I did. Only I carried the weight of blood-soaked snow, broken promises, and the cold steel that had pierced my chest. Living it twice wasn't a blessing. It was a prison built for memory. Prince Jian stepped forward, his smile elegant enough to fool everyone. Lord Wei. His voice was warm. So many years of devotion. Surely this is merely anger over yesterday's disagreement. Yesterday. In this life, yesterday was insignificant. In my last life, yesterday had been the first stone in the avalanche that buried my family. I am perfectly calm. He looked into my eyes. Searching. Testing. As if wondering whether I discovered something. He couldn't. Not yet. No one knew what I already knew. Not the emperor. Not Princess Lien. Not the ministers. Not even the old Grand Chancellor watching me from beneath half-closed eyes. Only I remembered the coming disaster. The royal marriage wasn't an honor. It was bait. Accepting it would chain House Wei to the palace. 2 years later, Prince Jian would accuse my father of treason. The forged evidence would appear. Witnesses would suddenly emerge. Our soldiers would become rebels overnight. My younger brother would be executed publicly. Mother would die in prison. Father would kneel until his forehead bled, begging for justice that never came. And I would marry Princess Lien, only to watch her hand Prince Jian the imperial seal while pretending to mourn my family. I had loved her once. Or perhaps I had only loved the illusion she carefully maintained. This time, I wouldn't even step onto that road. The emperor frowned. Explain yourself. Every pair of eyes settled upon me. I slowly picked up the marriage contract. The jade seal still glimmered. The future still looked beautiful, until one remembered how it ended. I folded the contract carefully before placing it upon the servant's tray. My family has served the empire for generations. Indeed, that loyalty remains unchanged. The emperor nodded. Then, I simply believe loyalty should never require marriage. The ministers exchanged uncertain glances. Prince Jian's smile stiffened for barely a heartbeat. Barely, but I saw it. Because I'd spent an entire lifetime studying every crack beneath his perfect mask. Princess Lien stepped toward me. Is someone forcing you? No. Has someone threatened your family? No. Her breathing grew uneven. Then why humiliate me? For one impossible moment. I almost answered honestly. Because I watched you hand my execution order to the man you secretly loved. Instead, I bowed. This humiliation ends today. She frowned. What does that mean? It means you deserve someone who truly wishes to become your husband. Silence. Not romantic. Not noble. Cold. Deliberate. Every word severed another invisible thread tying me to the future I'd already survived. The emperor dismissed the court early. No punishment. No approval. Only confusion. Exactly as I wanted. As I turned to leave, Prince Jian caught my shoulder. His grip was gentle. Too gentle. My friend. Friend. How many times had he called me that before betraying me? You've changed. So have you. His eyes narrowed. I don't believe I have. You will. His smile returned. I look forward to proving you wrong. I walked away without another word. Behind me, I could almost hear destiny grinding its teeth. Outside the palace, winter wind swept across the stone bridges. Captain Shen Liang waited beside my carriage. He had served my family since I was a child. In my previous life, he died protecting me. My lord. He searched my expression. Did everything go well? Better than expected. He blinked. You rejected the marriage? News traveled quickly inside palace walls. Yes. He looked horrified. Your father will. I know. He lowered his voice. The entire capital believed today's engagement was certain. They believed many things. He hesitated. You seem different. Yes. I smiled faintly. I finally learned the difference between opportunity and a trap. He clearly didn't understand. That was fine. He wasn't supposed to. Not yet. The carriage rolled through the capital. Everything looked exactly as I remembered. The lanterns, the crowded streets, the tea houses, the laughing children. None of them knew this peaceful city would drown in civil war. They still had 2 years. I had 2 years to change everything. Without revealing how I knew. Without becoming another target. Without making Prince Jian suspicious too soon. It would require patience, silence, and sacrifice. The gates of the Wei residence opened. Father stood waiting. His expression alone told me servants had already delivered today's news. He dismissed everyone with one wave. Only when the courtyard emptied did he speak. Explain. Father's voice never needed to be loud. Years commanding armies had taught him that true authority rarely shouted. He stood beneath the bare plum trees with both hands behind his back, his silver-threaded robes unmoving despite the winter wind. You rejected the imperial marriage. I did. You embarrassed the imperial family. I spoke respectfully. Respectfully? His eyes hardened. You overturned a decision negotiated for nearly 3 years. I know. He took one slow step closer. Then give me a reason worthy of risking our entire household. The answer rested on the edge of my tongue. Because if I marry her, every one of us dies. Instead, I swallowed it. I have doubts. Doubts. About the palace. Father studied me for a long time. Not angrily. Carefully. He had always possessed the rare ability to notice what others overlooked. When I was a child, he could tell I had lied simply by the way I held my teacup. Now, he noticed something far stranger. You look like someone who has attended too many funerals. The words nearly stole my breath. For a heartbeat, I saw them again. Mother's trembling hands gripping prison bars. My brother's body hanging from the execution platform. Father kneeling beneath black rain while soldiers forced his head lower. Too many funerals. Yes, far too many. I've simply grown cautious. Father sighed. Caution is admirable. Fear is not. This isn't fear. What is it? I met his gaze. Instinct. He looked unconvinced. Yet he asked no more questions. Instead, he changed the subject unexpectedly. The crown prince requested permission to visit tomorrow. Of course he had. Prince Jin never allowed uncertainty to remain unexplored. I'd rather not receive him. Father frowned. Refusing the future emperor twice in 2 days? He isn't emperor yet. Those words hung heavily between us. Father's expression sharpened. Be careful. I always am. No. He shook his head slowly. You weren't. His voice softened. You trusted people too easily. A bitter smile almost escaped me. Not anymore. The next afternoon, Prince Jian arrived with only 4 guards. An intentional display of humility. He entered our estate carrying a wooden box wrapped in silk. A small gift. Father accepted it politely. Ancient tea leaves. Rare. Expensive. Meaningless. My friend. Prince Jian smiled toward me. I hope we could speak privately. Father glanced at me. I nodded. We walked through the western garden where frozen ponds reflected pale winter sunlight. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he laughed softly. You've made everyone curious. Have I? Even Princess Lian. I remained silent. She barely slept. Still silent. He tilted his head. She deserves an explanation. No. No. She deserves honesty. And I was honest. His smile faded slightly. You've never been cruel before. Cruel? Rejecting someone publicly. I spared her years of unhappiness. He looked genuinely puzzled. What unhappiness? The kind built on misunderstandings. He searched my face again. You speak as though you've already seen the future. The sentence froze the air around us. Did he suspect something? No. Impossible. It was merely coincidence. Still, I answered carefully. I've seen enough of people. He chuckled. You're becoming philosophical. No. Then what? Tired. For the first time, Prince Jian stopped acting. The warmth vanished from his eyes. Only calculation remained. I've always valued your loyalty. I know. I hope nothing changes that. I looked toward the frozen pond. A single crack slowly spread beneath the ice. Invisible unless someone watched closely. Exactly like betrayal. Loyalty isn't blind. He said nothing. Neither did I. After another long silence, he smiled once more. The perfect prince had returned. If you ever change your mind. I won't. He nodded politely. I suppose time will tell. Yes, time always told the truth. Eventually. That evening, Captain Shun entered my study carrying several sealed reports. My lord. What is it? Our merchants. I opened the documents. Trade routes. Grain shipments. Iron purchases. Ordinary records. Except, one familiar seal caught my attention. The Black River Trading Company. My hands tightened instinctively. In my previous life, that company secretly transported military supplies to rebel forces under Prince Jian's orders. Everyone believed they were harmless merchants. Everyone except me, because I'd watched the evidence appear after it was already too late. When did we begin trading with them? Captain Shun checked another document. Only last month. And every agreement. He stared. They've done nothing wrong. End them. My lord. Immediately. He hesitated. We'll lose a fortune. We'll survive. He bowed. As you command. After he left, I unfolded the trade map across my desk. There. Another familiar location. Another piece returning to the board exactly as before. So history hadn't changed. Not yet. Which meant the conspiracy had already begun. I extinguished every candle except one. Its lonely flame danced across the map. If I moved too early, Prince Jian would notice. If I moved too late, everything would repeat. Outside, snow began falling over the capital. Soft, silent, beautiful, exactly like the night my family had been condemned. This time, however, I wasn't walking blindly toward that darkness. I was waiting for the first man to make the mistake I already knew he would make. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, someone else had already begun watching me. They had not revealed themselves, but I could feel their eyes, waiting, just as I was. The first snow of the season melted into gray slush by noon. 3 days had passed since Prince Jian's visit. 3 days since I severed every commercial tie with Black River Trading Company. 3 days of silence. Too much silence. Silence was dangerous in the capital. It usually meant someone was preparing to speak with a knife instead of words. My lord. Captain Shin Liang entered my study without his usual composure. We have visitors. From the palace? He shook his head. The Ministry of Revenue. That was unexpected. I closed the account book in front of me. Let them in. 3 officials entered wearing dark blue court robes. Their leader, Vice Minister Qiao, bowed politely. Lord Wei. Vice Minister. He smiled. I apologize for disturbing your morning. You wouldn't have come unless you had to. His smile widened slightly. A practical man. No, a man who remembered this conversation from another lifetime. Except, it had happened 6 months later. Already, the pieces were moving differently. Vice Minister Qiao unfolded an imperial document. The ministry is conducting a routine inspection of military expenditures. Routine. Nothing in the capital was routine. Father entered moments later. His expression remained calm, though I noticed the brief flicker in his eyes when he saw the document. Our ledgers are open. The inspection lasted 4 hours. Every shipment, every tax record, every grain purchase, every soldier's salary. The officials found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Not yet. When they finally departed, Father remained standing in the empty reception hall. They're testing us. I know. They've never inspected us this early. I know. He turned sharply toward me. You knew? I hesitated. I expected it. Why? Because I remembered. Instead, I answered with another truth. People become suspicious when plans change. Father looked thoughtful. You're referring to the marriage? Yes. He walked toward the open doorway. Snow dripped steadily from the roof. If refusing that marriage truly brought this much attention. He paused. Then perhaps your instinct was right. It was the closest thing to agreement I would receive. For now. That evening, I left the estate alone. No servants. No escort. Only a plain dark cloak hiding the embroidered crest of House Wei. The capital looked different when people didn't recognize you. Merchants complained openly. Soldiers drank too much. Officials accepted bribes in tea houses they believed were private. Truth preferred ordinary places. I entered an old bookstore tucked between a pharmacy and a tea merchant. The owner barely looked up. Looking for history. I'm looking for Master Yin. The old man's hands froze. He quietly closed the front door. You shouldn't say that name. I already did. He studied me for a long moment. Finally, he walked toward a hidden curtain at the back. This way. Beyond the shelves waited a tiny room warmed by a charcoal stove. An elderly scholar sat there reading without looking up. Master Yin. In my previous life, he had tried to warn Father. Prince Jin had him executed before he could speak. This time, he was still alive. Lord Wei. His voice was calm. I wondered how long it would take before you found me. My pulse quickened. You know me? I know your father. Only that. He smiled faintly. You're asking the wrong question. I remained standing. The right question? He finally closed his book. Why would the son of the Empire's greatest general visit a forgotten old teacher in secret? Because I already know you're one of the few honest men left. I seek advice. No. His sharp eyes met mine. You seek confirmation. The room became unbearably quiet. Master Yin gestured toward the chair opposite him. Sit. I obeyed. He poured tea into 2 cups. Neither of us drank. The palace frightens you. It should frighten everyone. Not everyone sees danger where you do. They will. He watched me carefully. Interesting answer. You disagree? I wonder how a young man who has never witnessed rebellion speaks with such certainty. My fingers tightened around the warm teacup. Every sentence felt like crossing thin ice. I've studied history. No. He smiled gently. You speak from experience. A chill crawled down my spine. Impossible. Unless. No. He couldn't remember another life. Could he? Before I could ask, footsteps echoed outside. The old bookseller knocked once. Master. What is it? Someone from the palace. Master Yin sighed softly. Then our conversation ends here. He looked directly into my eyes. Lord Wei. Yes. When someone changes one decision. He paused. History rarely changes only once. Then he stood and disappeared through another hidden door, leaving me alone with questions multiplying faster than answers. Outside, twilight covered the city. I had barely taken 20 steps before a familiar voice stopped me. Lord Wei. Princess Lien. She stood beside her carriage dressed simply, without the dazzling jewels of court. Only 2 attendants remained nearby. I've been waiting. I can see that. She dismissed her attendants with a glance. I need the truth. You already have it. No. Her voice trembled. I've asked myself every day what I did wrong. She looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. I thought. She stopped herself. What? I thought we understood each other. Once. We had. Or at least I believed we had. You deserve honesty. Then give it to me. I looked at the crowded street. People hurried past without noticing the princess standing beside an ordinary bookstore. I cannot marry into the palace. Why? Because I no longer trust it. Her face paled. You're accusing my family? I'm protecting mine. She stepped closer. From what? If I answered, everything would change. I can't tell you. Tears filled her eyes. You won't. There was a difference. She misunderstood it. And I let her. Princess Lien remained silent for so long that even the noise of the market seemed distant. Finally, she laughed. It wasn't bitter. It was defeated. I always believed honesty was enough. It usually is. Then why isn't it now? Because honesty without proof sounded like madness. Because memories from another lifetime could save no one if spoken aloud. Because warning someone about a future that had not yet happened would only make me the first suspect. I cannot explain. You won't even try. No. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen in my previous life. Not pride. Not anger. Regret. If this is goodbye. She swallowed. Then I hope history proves you wrong. History. The word lingered between us. I bowed. I hope so too. I walked away before she could see the conflict hidden beneath my calm expression. In another lifetime, I would have followed her carriage without hesitation. This time, I never looked back. The next morning, Father summoned me before sunrise. His study smelled of ink and burning sandalwood. Several sealed letters lay open across his desk. He looked older than he had only yesterday. Sit. I obeyed. Without speaking, he pushed one of the letters toward me. The Imperial Seal. I broke it open. Military reassignment. House Wei's Northern Army would be divided into 3 separate commands for improved administrative efficiency. My heartbeat slowed. It had begun. Exactly as before. Only earlier. They're separating your authority, I said quietly. Father nodded. Officially. Unofficially. They were making sure no single general possessed enough soldiers to resist the palace. The first move. Exactly as Prince Jian had planned. Father rubbed his forehead. I've served the Empire for 30 years. I know. I defeated 4 invasions. I know. And now, he laughed softly. They suddenly worry that I command too many troops. I looked at the letter again. The wording matched my memories almost perfectly. Only the date had changed. Someone was accelerating the plan. Will you obey? Father watched me carefully. What would you do? In my previous life, I urged him to obey without question. I believed loyalty would protect us. Instead, every concession only made us easier to destroy. This time, we obey. Father looked surprised. But we obey publicly. He waited. And privately, we begin recording everything. His eyes narrowed. Every order, every meeting, every shipment, every signature. He leaned back slowly. You think someone is building a case? I know someone is. He didn't ask how. Perhaps he no longer expected answers to every mystery surrounding me. Perhaps he had decided results mattered more than explanations. At last, he nodded. I'll begin today. For the first time since returning to this life, I felt history shift beneath my feet. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough to matter. 3 nights later, Captain Shin burst into my room. My lord. He was breathing hard. The warehouse. I stood immediately. What happened? Fire. The word struck like thunder. We rode through the sleeping capital without stopping. Smoke filled the eastern district. Flames devoured one of House Wei's grain warehouses. Soldiers formed desperate lines carrying buckets from the river. Workers shouted over collapsing beams. I recognized the place instantly. It had never burned in my previous life. Someone had changed tactics. Or adapted. Father stood directing the rescue. The western wall. Move the grain first. Keep civilians back. His commands cut cleanly through the chaos. Captain Shun grabbed my arm. We caught one man trying to escape. My pulse quickened. Alive. Yes. He dragged the prisoner forward. The man wore ordinary laborer's clothes. His face was blackened with soot. He refused to speak. I crouched before him. You were paid. Silence. By someone important. Nothing. You don't fear death. Still nothing. I noticed his hands. Calloused. Not from warehouse work. From archery. Military training. Exactly like the infiltrators Prince Jian had once used. Only, this man looked younger than I remembered. I reached into his sleeve before the guards could stop me. A small bronze token slipped into my palm. No family crest. No official mark. Only one carved symbol. A raven. My blood ran cold. That symbol didn't belong to Prince Jian. It belonged to another organization. One that, in my previous life, had remained hidden until after my family's destruction. Which meant one impossible thing. There was another player moving before the timeline I remembered. Someone unseen. Someone who already knew House Wei had become a target. Someone who had just announced their presence with fire. As the warehouse roof collapsed behind us in a shower of sparks, the prisoner slowly smiled for the first time. You refused the marriage. His voice was hoarse. You've already changed the game. Before anyone could stop him, he bit down hard. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Poison. Within seconds, his body went limp. The raven token remained in my hand. Cold, heavy, and completely absent from every memory of my first life. For the first time since living this life twice, I was facing an enemy I had never met before. The raven token refused to leave my thoughts. It rested on my desk beside a single burning candle, its black metal reflecting light in strange, uneven flashes. In my previous life, I had first seen that emblem after my father's execution. It had been carved into the handle of a dagger recovered from an abandoned safe house. The investigation had gone nowhere. The officials declared it the mark of common thieves. I knew better. Now it had appeared almost 2 years early. History was no longer repeating itself. It was adapting. A quiet knock interrupted my thoughts. Enter. Captain Shin stepped inside. The fire has been contained. The losses? Less than expected. I looked up. Why? The Western warehouse. I frowned. What about it? He hesitated. It was almost empty. For a moment, neither of us spoke. That was impossible. According to our records, the Eastern warehouse had always held emergency grain while the Western one stored military supplies. Unless Father had moved them. Without telling me. I'll speak with him. Captain Shin nodded but remained where he stood. There is something else. What? He lowered his voice. The Ministry of Revenue has already requested permission to inspect the burned warehouse. Too fast. Far too fast. The fire happened 6 hours ago. I know. They've already prepared documents. My expression hardened. They were waiting. Captain Shin didn't answer. He didn't need to. Someone had expected the fire before it happened. Father stood alone in the training yard before dawn. Despite his age, each strike of his spear remained powerful enough to whistle through the cold morning air. He stopped only after seeing me. You came early. You moved the supplies. He planted the spear into the ground. I did. Why didn't you tell me? His weathered face softened slightly. I wanted to know whether your instincts were truly your own. I stared at him. And he walked toward the weapon rack. 3 nights ago, he picked up an old ledger. I ordered half our grain transferred west. He opened the pages. No reason. No official request. No warning. He met my eyes. You visited the warehouse that morning. I remember. You stood there for nearly an hour. I did. You never said a word. He smiled faintly. But I noticed. My throat tightened. He had trusted my silence. Without understanding it. Without demanding proof. You saved hundreds of soldiers. No. I shook my head. You did. He laughed quietly. Perhaps. For the first time in either lifetime. I felt something change between us. Not duty. Trust. It had always existed. Now it had become mutual. The inspection began shortly after sunrise. Vice Minister Qiao arrived again. This time he brought 12 officials instead of 3. The burned warehouse still smelled of smoke. Charred beams lay scattered across the frozen ground. Qiao unfolded another imperial order. We've received reports suggesting military supplies may have been concealed here. Father gestured toward the ruins. You may search. The officials spent hours digging through ash, opening every surviving crate, recording every damaged barrel, finding nothing, because the supplies had already been moved. Vice Minister Qiao remained unnervingly calm, almost disappointed. He approached Father. Interesting. Father folded his arms. What is? The anonymous report claimed otherwise. Anonymous. Of course. Someone wanted House Wei accused before evidence existed. When that failed, they would simply try again. Qiao bowed politely. Our apologies. As the officials prepared to leave, one young clerk accidentally dropped a stack of papers. I bent to help. Most were ordinary inspection forms. One wasn't. A list of military officers. Several names were circled, including Captain Shun and my younger brother, Wei Jun. My pulse slowed. That list had no reason to be here. I handed the papers back without comment. The clerk thanked me nervously, but I had already memorized every name. Someone was selecting targets. The purge had begun. Quietly, carefully, exactly as it had before. Only this time, I knew who they intended to remove first. That evening I invited Captain Shun and my brother to dinner. Neither understood why. Wei Jun laughed as servants filled our cups. Elder brother, you've become strange. I've become cautious. You've become old. Captain Shun nearly choked on his tea. Father raised an eyebrow. Mind your manners. Wei Jun grinned unapologetically. He was 22, brilliant with a sword, hopeless at hiding his emotions. In my previous life, he died believing I would save him. The memory still woke me at night. I need both of you to listen carefully. Their smiles faded. Starting tomorrow, I looked first at Shun. You travel nowhere alone. Then at Jun. You never leave the estate without informing Captain Shun. Wei Jun frowned. Why? Because I said so. He looked offended. I'm not a child. No. I held his gaze. You're a target. The room fell silent. Wei Jun stared at me as though he had misheard. A target? Yes. He laughed uneasily. From whom? I don't know. That wasn't entirely true. I knew someone wanted him dead. I simply didn't know which enemy would strike first anymore. Father set down his chopsticks. This isn't a game. I know. You have reasons. Yes. But no proof. No. He closed his eyes briefly. Months ago, that answer would have ended the conversation. Now, he merely nodded once. We'll increase security. Wei Jun looked between us in disbelief. You're actually agreeing with him? Father's voice remained calm. Your brother has been right too many times. Wei Jun had no reply. Neither did I. The following afternoon, the capital celebrated the Winter Lantern Festival. Every street overflowed with music and colored silk. Families laughed. Children chased floating lanterns. No one noticed the tension beneath the celebration. Perfect days often hid ugly intentions. I accompanied Father to the palace banquet. Prince Jian greeted us with effortless grace. General Wei, my prince, and Lord Wei. He smiled warmly. I was beginning to think you intended to avoid me forever. I've been occupied. So I've heard. His eyes lingered on me. The warehouse fire. An unfortunate accident. Indeed. For just a fraction of a second, something unreadable crossed his expression. Relief? Disappointment? No. Confusion. The fire hadn't achieved its purpose. Someone else's plan had failed. Prince Jian hadn't expected that. Interesting. Very interesting. Perhaps he wasn't behind everything after all. Music echoed through the grand hall as nobles exchanged toasts. Princess Lian entered wearing silver rather than crimson. The entire court turned to admire her. She looked elegant, composed, but when our eyes met, she looked away first. That had never happened before. A servant approached quietly. My lord. He handed me a folded note. No seal, no name, only 6 words. Come to the Eastern Pavilion. Alone. I burned the note over a candle. Then I went. The Eastern Pavilion overlooked a frozen lotus lake. Empty. Silent. Almost. A hooded figure stepped from behind a stone pillar. You came. The voice belonged to a woman. Middle-aged. Controlled. I wasn't certain you would. You sent the note. I did. She removed her hood. I recognized her instantly. Lady Shui, former palace archivist. Officially retired. Unofficially, she had disappeared months before my execution in my previous life. You've changed fate. Her opening words froze me. I don't know what you mean. You refused the marriage. She smiled faintly. The first thread was cut. Cold air filled my lungs. What thread? The one that always begins the same way. She reached into her sleeve. Another raven token, identical to mine. My hand instinctively moved toward my sword. You work for them. No. She placed the token on the stone table. I escaped them. My heartbeat quickened. They're real. They're older than this empire. Who are they? They call themselves the Raven Circle. The name meant nothing. Yet something inside me tightened. They don't choose emperors. Lady Shui looked toward the palace. They create them. Silence settled over the frozen lake. You think Prince Jian serves them? I know he bargains with them. My thoughts raced. In my previous life, Prince Jian had seemed untouchable. What if he had never truly stood alone? What do they want? The same thing they've wanted for generations. She looked directly into my eyes. A ruler they can control. And House Wei, your family cannot be controlled. So they destroy us. Exactly. She stepped back. I cannot stay. Wait. She paused. How do you know all this? A shadow crossed her face. Because once. She stopped herself. I failed someone I should have protected. The words felt strangely familiar. Before I could ask another question, footsteps echoed across the bridge leading to the pavilion. Lady Shui disappeared into the darkness with astonishing speed. Moments later, Captain Shin arrived, breathing hard. My lord. What happened? He looked around cautiously. The palace guards. What about them? They've surrounded the western guest residence. Why? He swallowed. They've arrested Vice Minister Qiao. I stared at him. The ministry official? Yes. On what charge? Captain Shin lowered his voice. Treason. The world seemed to stop. Vice Minister Qiao had spent weeks investigating House Wei. Now he had been arrested by the palace itself. Someone was erasing witnesses. Someone powerful enough to sacrifice an entire vice minister overnight. And somewhere behind that decision, I could almost feel unseen ravens spreading their wings. The palace gates were still closed when the execution drums began. One slow beat, then another. The sound rolled across the capital like distant thunder. I stood on the balcony of the Wei residence, watching smoke rise from thousands of morning hearths. Captain Shun climbed the stairs 2 at a time. My lord. They're moving quickly. He nodded grimly. Vice Minister Qiao confessed. I looked at him. No. Captain Shin frowned. The palace announced. I know what they announced. I turned toward the city. He didn't confess. The words came with absolute certainty. Qiao had been ambitious, proud, corrupt enough to survive court politics, but not foolish enough to betray the empire. If he had spoken, someone had spoken through him. What happened after the announcement? Captain Shun unfolded a report. The confession named 7 officials. Dead. 3 committed suicide before sunrise. Convenient. The other 4? Missing. I closed my eyes. Someone wasn't cleaning the board anymore. They were setting it on fire. By noon, the capital had descended into whispers. Every tea house buzzed with rumors. Every official feared becoming the next accusation. Fear spread faster than truth. Exactly as the Raven Circle intended. Father entered my study carrying a sealed imperial summons. The Emperor requests our presence. Today, this afternoon, I accepted the scroll. The red imperial seal remained unbroken. Only us. And Wei Jun. My heartbeat slowed. The entire family. Too familiar. Too dangerous. In my previous life, the first accusation against House Wei had begun with a private audience. I looked toward Father. We don't all go. He studied me. The Emperor ordered it. I know. Refusing is rebellion. So is walking into a trap. Silence lingered. Then Father surprised me. You stay? I stared at him. What? If you're right. He smiled faintly. Someone in this family must remain free. No. You've spent months protecting us. His expression softened. Allow me to protect you once. Emotion tightened my chest. The same man who had once marched willingly toward his own destruction was now questioning every order. History had already changed more than I realized. I'll go, I said quietly. So will I. We both go. Father shook his head. Enough. His voice carried the authority of decades. I'm still the head of this house. Neither of us spoke again. The imperial audience began beneath an unusually empty throne room. Only the Emperor, Prince Jian, Princess Lian, 6 ministers, no musicians, no ceremonial guards, too few witnesses. Father and Wei Jun knelt. I remained one step behind them. The Emperor looked exhausted. Deep lines surrounded his eyes. General Wei. Father bowed. Your Majesty, I have received disturbing reports. Of course. Prince Jian stepped forward carrying several scrolls. Anonymous evidence. He placed them before the throne, suggesting House Wei has secretly diverted military supplies. I watched him carefully. His expression remained flawless. Almost. His right thumb tapped once against the scroll. A habit. He only did that when uncertain. Good. He wasn't entirely confident. Father spoke calmly. We welcome investigation. Prince Jian smiled. I expected nothing less. The Emperor nodded toward a guard. Bring the witness. The massive doors opened. A man in chains stumbled inside. Dirty, bruised, terrified. My pulse quickened. I recognized him. The stable master from our northern barracks. In my previous life, he had testified against Father. 6 months from now. Not today. The guard forced him to kneel. Prince Jian spoke gently. Tell His Majesty what you saw. The stable master trembled violently. He looked toward Father, then toward me. Finally, he lowered his head. His voice cracked. I have never seen General Wei commit treason. The hall fell silent. Prince Jian's smile vanished. The stable master continued. I was tortured. They demanded I memorize lies. I refused. I cannot condemn an innocent man. One minister dropped his jade tablet. Another stumbled backward. The Emperor slowly rose from his throne. Who tortured you? The stable master lifted shaking fingers. Not toward Father, toward Prince Jian. The throne room erupted. Impossible. He's lying. Protect His Highness. Guards rushed forward from every entrance. Some surrounded the Emperor. Others instinctively stepped before Prince Jian. The stable master collapsed under the weight of his own fear. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. His voice broke into sobs. Prince Jian didn't panic. He simply looked disappointed. Like a teacher watching a promising student fail an easy lesson. You've suffered greatly. His tone remained warm. I forgive your confusion. The stable master shook violently. No, I know your face. You were there. Prince Jian sighed. His Majesty. He bowed respectfully. This man has clearly lost his senses. One of the senior ministers nodded immediately. The witness is unstable. Another agreed. He cannot be trusted. I watched the Emperor's expression carefully. He wasn't convinced. But neither was he ready to accuse his own heir. That hesitation was exactly what Prince Jian relied upon. Then, Princess Lian stepped forward. Father. Every eye turned toward her. She looked pale. Her hands trembled. Yet her voice remained steady. I wish to ask the witness one question. The Emperor nodded slowly. Proceed. She knelt before the stable master. Look at me. He hesitated, then obeyed. You said someone tortured you. Yes. Did you ever see this person strike you? No. Did you hear his voice? Yes. She inhaled deeply. What did he say? The stable master's eyes widened. His lips parted. He said, "The hall became perfectly still. A loyal dog dies before asking who holds the leash." My blood froze. Those exact words. Not Prince Jian's. The Raven Circle. Lady Shui had whispered the same sentence beside the frozen lotus lake. Prince Jian's eyes changed. Only for an instant. Not fear. Recognition. He knew those words too. Princess Lian slowly stood. She turned toward her brother. "You've never spoken like that." Prince Jian remained silent. She looked toward the emperor. "Neither has father." The emperor frowned. "What are you saying?" She took a long breath. "I believe. Someone wants us to suspect the wrong person." Murmurs spread through the hall. Prince Jian smiled again. "Beautiful. Perfect. Dangerous. My dear sister." His voice remained gentle. "You've always been kind." She met his eyes without flinching. "I've also learned to pay attention." Their gaze locked. For the first time, brother and sister stood on opposite sides. The confrontation ended without arrests, without convictions, without justice. But something far more valuable had happened. Doubt. Prince Jian walked away beneath a cloud of suspicion. The emperor ordered every accusation against House Wei suspended pending further investigation. It wasn't victory. It was breathing room. Exactly what we needed. That night I received another unsigned message. The Southern Archives. Midnight. Burn this. I arrived alone. Lady Shui waited beside rows of ancient bamboo records. She looked exhausted. "You survived." "Barely." She handed me a small lacquered box. Inside lay dozens of folded letters. Official correspondence. Imperial seals. Private signatures. I unfolded the first. Then the second. Then the third. Each revealed hidden payments flowing through merchant companies that didn't exist. Military funds disappearing into phantom accounts. And every trail, eventually leading toward one forgotten symbol. The Raven. "This is enough to expose them." Lady Shui shook her head. "No." I looked up. "Why?" "Because evidence isn't truth." She closed the box. "It's only useful if the right people live long enough to see it." Before I could respond, the doors exploded inward. Masked assassins flooded the archive. Black clothing. Curved blades. Every sleeve embroidered with a silver raven. Lady Shui pushed me backward. "Run. I won't leave you." "You must." Steel flashed through the darkness. Captain Shin burst through a side entrance with 6 Wei guards. "Protect Lord Wei." The archive descended into chaos. Bookshelves crashed. Scrolls scattered across the floor. Blades rang against steel. I drew my sword just as an assassin lunged. He moved with terrifying precision. Not like a common killer. Like a trained soldier. I barely blocked the strike. Captain Shin fought beside me. "Take the box." "What about you?" "I'll hold them." Another assassin fell. Then another. But more kept coming. Lady Shui shoved the lacquered box into my hands. Her eyes held mine for one brief second. "You already changed one future." She smiled sadly. "Now change the rest." She turned, intercepted a blade meant for me, and collapsed. The box remained clutched against my chest as Captain Shin forced me toward the hidden rear exit. Behind us, flames swallowed the Southern Archives. And with Lady Shui's final sacrifice, the last person who truly understood the Raven Circle had fallen. Lady Shui's blood stained the lacquered box. Even after I reached the safety of the Wei residence, I could still feel its warmth on my hands. Captain Shin shut the study doors and ordered every servant away. Only Father, Wei Jun, Captain Shin, and I remained. No one spoke. The silence belonged to grief. Finally, Father broke it. "She chose to save you." I nodded. "Yes. You must make that choice matter." I placed the lacquered box on the table. "We begin tonight." I lifted the lid. Dozens of letters lay inside, carefully tied with faded silk. Not random documents. A complete record. Trade agreements. Secret payments. Military appointments. Private correspondence between noble houses. And beneath them all, one leather-bound ledger. The first page contained only one sentence. "The Raven Circle survives by making every truth appear unbelievable." I turned another page. Names. Dates. Payments. Every transaction was coded, yet consistent. Someone had documented decades of corruption. Prince Jin's name appeared only twice. Not as a leader, as a beneficiary. That surprised me more than anything. "He isn't their master," I murmured. Father looked over my shoulder. "Then who is?" "I don't know." For the first time since living this life twice, I truly didn't know. The following days became strangely peaceful. No accusations. No palace summons. No mysterious fires. The capital breathed again, which made me uneasy. Enemies who stopped moving were usually preparing something worse. I spent each morning studying the ledger, each afternoon meeting merchants and retired officers, each evening walking the streets without announcing my identity. Not searching for revenge, searching for patterns. Every answer led to another question. Every trail stopped just short of a name. Until one rainy afternoon, Captain Shun entered carrying a visitor's card. My lord. I glanced at it. No title, no family crest. Only 3 characters. Old Shun. My hands tightened. I remembered him. Not as a noble, not as an official, as a carpenter. In my previous life, he had repaired the execution platform the week before my brother died. Bring him. An elderly man entered with a slight limp. His clothes were patched, but clean. His hands bore decades of honest labor. He bowed. I apologize for disturbing you. What do you need? He shook his head. I came to return something. He placed a wrapped bundle on the table. Inside rested a small wooden box. Simple, unremarkable, except for the carving beneath its lid. A raven. I looked at him sharply. Where did you get this? I made it. When, 28 years ago, Father and Captain Shun exchanged glances. Old Shun smiled sadly. I didn't know what the symbol meant. Who ordered it? He looked toward the rain outside. A palace official. His name? I never learned it. He reached into his sleeve. But I kept the receipt. Yellowed paper slid onto the table. The signature at the bottom stopped my breathing. Minister Han, the current Grand Chancellor, the most respected official in the Empire, the man everyone trusted, the man who had publicly defended Father in my previous life. My memories suddenly shifted. Not changed. Clarified. Every time House Wei had nearly escaped, Minister Han had always suggested waiting, gathering more evidence, following proper procedure. Every delay had benefited our enemies. Not because he appeared guilty, because he appeared indispensable. I looked at Father. He isn't protecting the court. Father's expression darkened. He's protecting the circle. That evening I did something my previous self never would have imagined. I requested a private audience with Princess Lien. She received me in the Imperial Gardens. Cherry blossoms had begun replacing winter branches. Spring had finally arrived. You wished to see me. I did. She studied me carefully. You've changed again. So have you. A faint smile crossed her face. What do you need? I reached into my robe, then stopped. Trust wasn't built with secrets, but neither was it built with reckless honesty. I need someone inside the palace. She looked at me for several seconds. And why would I help you? Because your family is in danger too. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked the one question I had dreaded. If I had become your wife. Her voice softened. Would you have told me everything? The truth deserved better than comfort. No. She closed her eyes briefly. I thought so. I would have been trying to protect you. She laughed quietly. Men always say that. When she looked at me again, there was no resentment. Only maturity. I'll help. I blinked. You will. Not because I trust you completely. She looked toward the palace. But because I no longer trust everyone else. Princess Lien's first message arrived 3 days later. It contained only one sentence. Minister Han never enters the Western Archive through the front gate. Nothing else. No explanation. No signature. Simple. Precise. Useful. I burned the paper immediately. For the next week, Captain Shun and I observed the Western Archive from abandoned buildings across the street. By day, Minister Han appeared exactly as expected. Calm. Respected. Always surrounded by officials. By night, everything changed. Just after midnight, an unmarked carriage arrived without lanterns. Han dismissed every guard. He entered through a narrow servant's entrance. Alone, Captain Shin whispered, "Shall we follow?" "No. We'll lose him." "I know." He frowned. "Then why wait?" "Because I already know what happens if we chase too soon." He didn't understand. But he trusted me. That trust had become our greatest strength. Instead of following Han, we watched who followed him. 3 different couriers. 2 palace accountants. 1 commander from the Imperial Guard. Every face entered my memory. The circle wasn't one monster. It was a web. And for the first time, I could finally see its shape. Weeks passed. Quietly. Carefully. The ledger grew heavier with notes. Our allies slowly increased. Be not soldiers. Not ambitious nobles. Ordinary people. A judge who hated bribery. A physician who remembered unexplained poisonings. A retired tax collector. A widow whose husband had vanished after asking too many questions. None wanted revenge. They wanted truth. Piece by piece, the circle's mask began to crack. One afternoon, the emperor unexpectedly summoned Father and me. The old ruler looked noticeably weaker. His cough interrupted nearly every sentence. "I've grown tired." No one answered. He smiled faintly. "That's honesty." His eyes settled on me. "Lord Wei, Your Majesty, you refused my daughter's hand." "I did. Do you regret it?" I thought carefully before answering. "No." He nodded. "I believe you." He stood slowly and walked toward the open window overlooking the palace lake. "When I was young," his voice became distant, "I believed every smiling minister." He laughed softly. "Age is expensive." He turned back. "I've begun asking different questions." Hope stirred quietly inside me. The emperor continued. "I want every financial record from the last 20 years reviewed." Father remained perfectly still. Minister Han, who stood quietly at the edge of the hall, finally lost his composure. Only for a heartbeat. His fingers tightened around his sleeves. His breathing changed. Tiny details. Enough. He bowed deeply. "Your Majesty." Such an investigation would overwhelm the ministries. The emperor looked at him. "Then let them be overwhelmed." Silence. Absolute silence. The order had been given publicly. It could no longer be withdrawn without explanation. For the first time, Minister Han looked directly at me. His expression held no warmth, no courtesy, no disguise, only recognition. He knew. Not everything, but enough. The game had ended. The confrontation had begun. As Father and I left the throne room, Captain Shun hurried toward us from the palace courtyard. "My lord." "What happened?" He handed me a sealed message. No name. Only a single black feather tucked beneath the wax. I broke the seal. Inside, one line waited. "You remembered one life. We remember them all." For the first time since this journey began, my hand trembled. The black feather lay across my palm long after everyone else had left the room. Father closed the study doors himself. Captain Shun dismissed the guards. Wei Jun stood beside the window with one hand resting on the hilt of his sword. No one spoke. The message had stolen the air from the room. "You remembered one life. We remember them all." Captain Shun finally broke the silence. "What does it mean?" "I don't know." That answer would have frustrated me once. Now it simply reflected reality. The Raven Circle had manipulated emperors, hidden behind ministers, survived generations. And somehow, they knew something about my second life that should have been impossible. Father picked up the feather. "There are only two possibilities." I looked at him. "They're bluffing." He turned the feather over. "Or they're telling the truth." Neither possibility was comforting. 3 days later, the emperor announced the Grand Council. Every minister, every military commander, every provincial governor still in the capital. Attendance was mandatory. The investigation into the imperial finances would begin publicly. Minister Han had no choice but to attend. Neither did Prince Jian. Nor did I. The throne room felt different from every previous gathering. No music, no celebration, only anticipation. The emperor entered more slowly than ever before. Yet when he sat upon the dragon throne, his voice carried throughout the hall. For years, he paused to steady his breathing. This empire has relied upon trust. His eyes swept across the officials. Today we shall rely upon evidence. A murmur spread through the chamber. Minister Han stepped forward gracefully. "Your Majesty, I have already prepared every financial record." "Excellent." The emperor nodded. "Present them." Servants carried dozens of account books into the center of the hall. Minister Han spoke with perfect confidence. "Every tax, every military payment, every imperial expense, open to inspection." He smiled. "The empire has nothing to hide." I almost admired him. Almost. If Lady Shui had not died, if old Shun had burned that receipt, if Princess Lian had remained silent, if Father had continued trusting blindly, he would have won again. Instead, the emperor looked toward me. "Lord Wei." My heart remained calm. "Yes, Your Majesty. You requested permission to submit supplementary records." "I did." "Proceed." Captain Shen stepped forward carrying the lacquered box. Gasps echoed through the court. Minister Han's expression did not change. But I noticed one tiny detail. His left hand stopped moving. He had recognized the box. I opened it carefully. One letter after another spread across the long ceremonial table. Official seals, private ledgers, merchant receipts, military authorizations, the hidden record of decades. The throne room grew quieter with every page. The Minister of Revenue examined the handwriting. It matches. The chief archivist inspected the seals. These are genuine. A senior judge compared the signatures. No alteration. Every confirmation tightened the invisible net around Minister Han. Yet he remained calm. Finally, he bowed. Impressive. The entire hall turned toward him. I congratulate whoever forged such convincing documents. There it was. The final defense. Deny everything. Demand impossible proof. He had survived 30 years using exactly that strategy. Until today, Princess Lien stepped forward. I have proof. I shifted toward her. She carried a small wooden chest. I recovered this from the Western Archive. She opened it. Inside rested dozens of personal journals, written by palace archivists over 40 years. Each described documents quietly removed, records rewritten, witnesses disappearing. Every entry ended with the same instruction. Approved by Grand Chancellor Han. The Emperor slowly rose. Han. The old minister remained perfectly still. Do you deny these as well? For the first time, he did not answer. Silence settled over the throne room like fresh snow. Minister Han looked not at the Emperor, not at Princess Lien, not even at the evidence spread before him. He looked at me. So, his voice remained gentle. You truly remembered. Every official frowned in confusion. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. What does that mean? Han smiled. A tired smile. Not defeated. Relieved. You deserve the truth. He slowly removed the jade badge of the Grand Chancellor and placed it upon the floor. I served 3 emperors. I buried 2. I created 1. Prince Jin's face lost all color. You? Han looked toward him. You believed you were choosing your own path. A sad laugh escaped him. So did your father. The throne room became deathly quiet. Han continued. The Raven Circle never desired power. They desired permanence. Kings die. Ministers retire. Families fall. But institutions, he closed his eyes, can rule forever. The Emperor's voice thundered through the hall. Guards. Steel rang from every direction. Imperial guards surrounded the former Grand Chancellor. He made no attempt to resist. Instead, he looked at me once more. You changed more than I expected. I only made one different choice. No. He smiled faintly. You chose to stop trusting appearances. His wrists were bound. Yet he walked proudly, almost peacefully. As the guards led him away, he spoke one final sentence. The circle ends because someone finally refused the future we prepared. The massive doors closed behind him. For the first time in decades, the empire breathed. Prince Jin resigned his claim to the throne within a month. No dramatic arrest. No public execution. He accepted exile to a distant monastery. Before leaving, he requested one final meeting. We stood beside the same frozen lotus lake where Lady Shui had once warned me. Except now, spring covered the water with blooming flowers. I hated you. Prince Jin's voice was quiet. I know. I also envied you. I looked at him. Why? You always believed loyalty meant protecting people. He smiled bitterly. I believed it meant controlling them. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally he bowed. I'm sorry. In another life, those words would have meant nothing. Now, they simply arrived too late. I returned the bow, lived differently. Then I walked away. Not because I forgave him, because I no longer needed him. Months became years. Father retired peacefully. Wei Jun became one of the empire's most respected generals. Captain Shin finally married the physician he had quietly loved for years, filling the Wei residents with laughter instead of soldiers' footsteps. Princess Lien chose not to marry. Instead, she established schools throughout the provinces, believing that an educated people were harder to deceive than frightened ones. We remained friends. Nothing more. Nothing less. It was enough. As for me, I declined every title the court offered. I accepted only one responsibility. Keeper of the Imperial Archives. Some found the decision strange. A general's son choosing dusty records over military glory. They never understood. Empires were not destroyed only by swords. Sometimes they fell because someone quietly changed a document, or believed the wrong smile, or accepted a future without questioning it. Every evening, before leaving the archives, I paused before one empty shelf. There rested the restored lacquered box. Lady Shue's name had been carved beneath it. No longer forgotten. No longer hidden. I had lived this life twice. The first time, I mistook obedience for wisdom. The second time, I learned that refusing one beautiful lie could save countless honest lives. No one ever discovered why I had changed so suddenly. No one ever knew what I already knew. And for the first time, I was grateful that some truths belonged only to me.